It is Monday night. I'm pretty sure. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, at least right now. He's Greg Allison. You know him from Green Greg's great website with a lot of information about worms, a lot of information about survival, a lot of information about other things. And I guess is it Cosmic Greg's is your other one?
Galactic Greg's.
Galactic Greg's. I got you. And what are we going to talk about tonight? Well, here's a quote from that I asked Greg, what do you want to talk about? And Greg says, our nation rots from within and is destined to fall apart because the youth don't know how to build and maintain anything, and they are dumb, lazy, and feminized. Greg says he did a video on that and our nation's disintegration and on the tough love required to begin to right the ship. We have to get away from these chemicals too. How's that for a topic? I say that's a dandy topic. But let's talk first, Greg. You were out with with Rex in California,
Yes.
and y'all were walking through this tunnel, the tunnel from Back to the Future, Back to the Future, and you let out kind of a yodel thing, and you could actually see in with the naked eye the actual energetic or harmonic trail of the wording. Rex's didn't let it out, but yours must have been right on the right frequency or something, and you could actually see it. What do you think it was?
Well, it's interesting because Jeffrey, it was light. And I caught it on my camera. Rex got it on his camera, and it was me basically belting out a line of a song, a little ditty I did for my high altitude liftoff hybrid rocket launch balloon program from the early '90s, which was, we called it high altitude liftoff. So Rex has been saying Halo for some time, but I predated him on it. And I had a kind of a calypso Deo type song. I said, Halo, hang a rocket from a balloon and off we go. And I can belt it out really loud. I got a set of pipes there.
You did.
And so I used to have a little ditty about every member of the team, some little verses I'd sing about them just for fun. It's just a fun thing. And that's all it was. The whole thing was about fun, but I'm quite capable of projecting very nicely. And my youngest daughter sings opera, by the way. So
interesting. And from my Air Force days, Greg, we have Halo, high altitude, low opening.
Right.
On the C-130 world, which means you drop stuff from way up high with a smaller opening through the ramp of the C-130. So Halo is definitely a used term, but I saw it and I thought, in my mind, I'm thinking, I don't know what it was, but it was exactly perfectly right that you could actually see the sine wave, for lack of a better terminology, of the sound.
Right.
And you just happen to catch it just right. And I think all of our sound does that, but we don't see it. And what was it that was right there that allowed you to be able to see it?
Well, what's interesting about it was it did have the amplitude modulation, and you could see the compression waves. You could see the entire waveform.
And it was not deteriorating. It was the same all the way through that tunnel. It took off.
But the most interesting thing was it was light.
It was light because it was kind of dark in that tunnel, and you could actually see the light. That's a whole. I mean, so if we could see into that spectrum, Greg, do you think that sound always refracts light?
It could, if you have light to be refracted, Jeffrey. Light has to be, if it's refracted, it has to have a source and be refracted through prismatic type lenses. So like water droplets, rainbow. But, I was basically in an absence of light in a tunnel. I mean, there's light from the ends. But the fact is, if you look at that sound wave going down the tunnel, it maintained the light through the distance, and it was white the entire time. If it was refracted, it would change in colors, and it would have changed in intensity and luminosity. It was consistent.
Greg, I was in the church for 20 years. I got out of the church, but it's hard to get the church out of the boy. And I'm thinking of God said, which is sound, let there be light. And the actual sound was light, and there was light. Just the sound was light. Are we living now in the light of the sound of divinity?
You tell us. We all have divinity within us.
We do.
Maybe this is an example of divinity emerging, the awakening.
Ooh, you were throwing some of your divinity out there. Somebody said you look like Gandalf. Maybe you were doing some Gandalf type stuff.
Perhaps.
And then another thing that the Jesus character said, that when your eye is full of light, you're in good shape. So you saw that light, so you must be in good shape.
Well, something might be working.
And you guys didn't see it real time though, did you? You saw it on the video.
Well, I was looking up, Rex was looking off to the side, and then we played the video back. It was like, whoa, what is that?
Do you think that's
camera? I've got it on mine. He had a more higher resolution camera. It showed up better on his. I'm not posting my video on that. I probably will. I've got a backlog of videos to post. I'm still posting videos.
Well, the video I saw, whose was that? Was that Rex's video?
Rex's, yes.
Okay. Was that shot with the P1000?
I think he shot it with his camera.
Oh, his Samsung.
His phone.
Yep. That Samsung Note 10's got a great phone camera on it. It's the one he mentioned that he had one, and of course I got to be like Rex, so I got one.
Yeah, I got a Note 9, but yeah, that's what he shot it with, and it was he had a very good resolution. I've got my primary working camera, and I use that Samsung occasionally, and it does have a better video quality than this thing, but I like this.
Yeah, I saw you carrying that in the video.
Yeah. It's like, if I'm looking at myself in the video, and I can turn this thing around and see myself, but it messes me up. So I'd rather not even see myself when I'm shooting myself.
Gotcha. I just got the P1000, and Rex, is also copying Rex.
Maybe I should follow his lead on some of these things. Might help my video quality a bit, but I try to make the content of my video what I'm telling people. It's more about what I'm saying than the picture. Although video quality counts a lot on YouTube. I know that.
They say, Greg, and I have a stepfather who's he minces the details. Most people get down to the details. He doesn't even start till he gets to the details. And he has found several studies that say actually on YouTube, believe it or not, the most important thing is your audio quality.
Yeah. Audio quality, it really, if you're talking, audio quality really counts. Now, I do have some problems with that, in that when I'm outside shooting, people, this camera picks up the wind.
Right.
Everybody says, put a sock on. Well, what? Put a sock right there.
Now, Greg, I dunk under cold water every day in our lake here. And today it was 34 and the lake is right about 40. So it was 26 and the lake was 40. So it was pretty cold. What do you think that sound would have looked like underwater?
Well, sound is a compression wave, and it is more intense in water. Although kind of yelling from your lungs in the water might be problematic.
Well, you could do it once.
Yeah, one time. I came close to it once. I thought I was actually going to drown once. I was a split second from it. I have come close to dying many times in my life. And it's kind of funny. I used to look at the James Bond movies and all these superhero movies. Every 5 minutes they come an inch of dying, and they always survive. And then I got thinking about the probability of that, and I thought it was hilarious and funny. Like, nobody would survive all that. It just wasn't probable. It was ridiculous.
That's true.
But then I got thinking about my own life, right? Jeffrey, and I shouldn't be here, quite frankly, because I've had quite a number of close calls. And the more I get thinking about it, I think it's really odd that I'm here in the first place.
If you had to put a number on it, Greg, how many close calls have you come in your life?
I haven't even counted them all up. There's lots of them. I used to play Bigfoot when I was a kid and scare campers, and I get shot at. I've had several close calls.
You seriously got shot at? Oh my.
And I used to, and I've had several close calls in the automobile, and I nearly drowned and got run over by a tractor when I was 2 years old. The back wheel of a Ford diesel tractor ran over me right up through here.
Oh, you should have been dead.
There's just many things, just one after another, pneumonia and various other things.
And plus you've been married too, right?
Yeah, that's the scariest thing, maybe.
That'll kill a guy. But I'm not against marriage at all. Marriage is a beautiful institution.
Yes. When you're ready to be in an institution, right?
Absolutely. But I love that video with you and Rex. That was a fun one. And when I saw that sound wave, I mean, it looked like something off the Supernatural TV show that y'all faked. It was so good. And you guys should go watch that. I guess it's on Rex's channel now, but Greg will have it out soon on
It's real.
his channel.
Probably put it on Galactic Greg's. It's real. I mean, that happened. And as far as marriage, look, if I find the right lady, hey, yeah.
Absolutely.
I came close to it. I had actually a young lady propose marriage to me last year, but she had some problems. There were some demons in her closet that were a little bit too intense for me.
Yeah, you don't need that. I got enough in my own closet, but I'm probably getting close to it myself, Greg, right now. So, you can't sometimes you just got to realize, wow, you got a really good thing. You should take advantage of it. But
Oh yeah.
That.
Oh yeah. If I find the right lady, I'd be all for it. And in fact, it's good if you have a partner in life. But
it's so good. It really is. I remember before I was having a really good life before the last year when I met Cynthia, but I'd have these great victories. You want to high five somebody and there ain't nobody there to high five. You're high fiving yourself. It's not quite the same.
And it's like enjoying a sunset. I love sunsets and sunrises, but they're a lot sweeter when you got someone to enjoy it with.
They are. And sex is a little better with other people too, generally speaking. Generally speaking. So Greg, you're talking about, some would say that you paint a pessimistic picture in that quote of where we are as humanity today in general. But I think unless we want to get Pollyannish, that's a very, very accurate quote. We are living in a place where our nation, as we look at it objectively, especially some of us that have a little more time to be objective, we have a little more of a perspective. We can see and understand what we used to be, what we are. And when we say it's the youth that don't know how to build and maintain anything, there's a lot of old youth too, Greg, that don't know how to build or maintain anything themselves, dumb, lazy, feminized. And we are disintegrating, and it is time for some tough love. Where do you think is the best place to begin? I think we might have already begun just by recognizing it as a fact, at least those of us that have.
That's true. Our society is set up against those that want to institute tough love. And tough love is essentially telling the kids no. You don't have to say yes to them all the time. Don't be your kids' friends. Be the parent. Now, being a parent means that you still love your kids. Being a friend and loving somebody is two different things.
It is.
But if you give them everything they want, you spoil them. Sometimes you have to withhold things that you might otherwise like to give them. You just got to have the recognition that you just can't give them everything. It's just not good for them. It's like, the rock star kid, the kid that grows up as a TV star. Their whole reality is so warped that they go through life in a nightmare. Everything falls apart because they've been so spoiled. And our kids are kind of a lot like that today. And the gravity situation is this: go out and try to hire people, young people, to do work for you. It's virtually impossible. I run a worm farm, market garden, and finding people to work for me is virtually impossible. And look, I'm not the youngest person on the block, but I'm gonna tell you something, Jeffrey. I can run circles. I got a kid that's 17 years old. I can run circles around him. I'm shoveling. In fact, I shoveled a flatbed truck full of horse manure Saturday, and I'm just plowing through it. And he's like way back here and just struggling with it. And he's 17-year-old. I've got a couple 20-something-year-olds. Same story. I can just plow through, and part of it is the right attitude. Part of it is knowing how to work. So I have to try to train these kids how to work. But I've actually caught kids, sloughing off, competing to see who could screw off the most. And that floored me. That blew my mind, because when I was growing up, we would actually compete to see who could do the most work, who was the best. And those kids, when we were working, that's what we would do. And when I see that now, it's like, you gotta be kidding me. But it's across our society. If you go to, I'd say I like to buy chicken sometimes from Publix. You buy chicken in a box. It used to be a whole chicken cut up. Well, they don't advertise as a whole chicken anymore because the kids that work there don't know what goes in a chicken, or maybe they don't know how to cut it up. I mean, you get 3 legs, 2 wings, 4 wings. So now they sell it as, they gave up. Now they sell it as chicken pieces. I mean, management figured out that the guys don't know how to do it, so they adjusted for it. you look at my video I did in Arizona with my worm box, it said fragile, but it should have been fragile. I got a lady working for me. But anyway, this box is marked fragile all over, and it's smashed, just smashed. And I get, sometimes customer complaints about boxes that are smashed and mishandled through the postal service. Things get lost. There's in fact, the thumbnail picture for that video is a hiring sign in a nearby Burger King where it says hiring all shifts. Well, that sign has been saying hiring all shifts almost since they opened that place a few years ago. And people pour through there like water through a basketball hoop. They can't keep decent help. And if you go there now to get a fish fillet sandwich, half the time it's going to be either burnt, overcooked, like a piece of shoe leather, or it's going to be raw. I mean, I used to love Burger King, fish fillets, the BK fish fillet, as far as fast food goes. And fast food is not the best thing in the world. And unfortunately, Alabama's per capita is probably the capital of fast food in America and the world. And that's the most unfortunate thing, especially, for somebody like me when I'm an organic gardener. So I'm really promote the growing of healthy food. All that aside, I'm just talking about the labor aspects of it. Finding people to work is extremely hard. People aren't going into the services, the skill sets, the blue collar jobs. They're not learning how to be electricians and plumbers and carpenters and mechanics because they think it's beneath them. And so they go to school, they go to college and learn history and psychology and all these other things, and they get business. They get out, they spend a fortune on their degree and they can't even get a job.
And they're $100,000 in debt.
Bingo. Whereas right now, the trades are what's paying the income, and the trades are honest work. I'll be honest, I work at NASA in the daytime, and I feel more reward from shoveling out a load of horse dung than I do working on a lot of our documents, because I can see the productivity in what I'm doing. I can see the benefit. It's physical, it's tangible, and it's honest. There it is. I just did this work, and there's the reward for it. I got this nice pile of horse manure, which is
it's weird. We're not. We're not that old. I'm 56. I don't know how old you are, but back when I was young, I remember that same exact thing. I used to work in the summers they used to call it haul and hod for block masons. What we started out, we would actually carry the mud and the blocks up the ladder to keep, I had to keep 2 block masons supplied. And my buddy was doing the same thing. And my buddy and I were competing to see who can haul the most blocks, who can haul the most mud, and who can keep, the block masons occupied. And we would start in somebody that was running the sites that we were on got smart, saw we were competing, and started giving us extra money for the one that won at the end of the day. Then it was really a contest. So, but now you've got people, and we're not all people, but you've got a lot of young people that it's now the path of least resistance. What's the very minimal amount of work I can do without getting fired? And how did that change, and why?
We lost our culture. We lost just the essence of who we are. I mean, this country was established as a working culture. It had a work ethic. And somewhere, as families have unraveled and cultures have unraveled and communities have unraveled, it's not been transmuted to the younger generation. And kids go to school and they get totally indoctrinated in the schools by whatever they want to put in their heads. And that doesn't include a work ethic. And these kids spend a lot of their time playing video games. I mean, they've got all kind of material stuff. I've done videos with my dad, and I made it a point to ask him, how hard they worked and what they got for it. They didn't get crap. They didn't get nothing. They worked their tails off day and night. And what they get for it? The right to sit at the dinner table.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I remember one of my preacher friends told this story. He went out and it was Alabama. He was a city boy. He went out in Alabama for a summertime to work on his cousin's farm. So they got him up. It was still dark. They got down to breakfast, and there was fried chicken, and there was a bunch of pancakes. And he said, "Didn't you got some post toasties?" And he had a little bit of post toasties. He didn't realize he wasn't coming back in until it was dark. And they came in at noon. Actually, they were out there before light. Came in at noon, and he knew that the next day he had himself pancakes. He had fried chicken. He had the whole thing because he knew he was going to be working. And
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
you didn't see fat kids back in our day.
No.
You really did. And now we can't even tell a kid. You can't even say to a kid, look. And I don't know if I'd say to a kid, you're fat, but you can't even tell a kid that he needs to lose some weight and get better shape because now you're body shaming him, Greg.
Yeah. Well, we've got such a PC culture that we're so afraid of offending anybody. I think every kid in America needs to go to the boot camp in the military and have a drill sergeant yelling down their throat, telling them what a maggot they are, just to give them an attitude adjustment, to get them off the high horse of thinking they're entitled to everything for nothing. Yeah, that's part of the tough love. Now, I say, from a gardener standpoint, if you take a plant raised in the greenhouse and you want to set it in the field, you know dang well that plant's going to die in the field unless you harden it off. You have to gently introduce it to the harder environment of being in the wind and the sun and the rain. So I take mine and I set them under a tree on a camper shell to let them harden off. They're not in the full sun, they're not in the full rain or a breeze, but they're getting introduced to it, and I'm transmitting them from there to the field, and they survive that way. That's called hardening off. The kids these days need hardened off in order to really adjust to society and be productive. They're not being productive. They're not adjusted, and they have a mental maladjustment. So they have a hard time with the idea that they're supposed to work, that they're supposed to do things, or if somebody says something to them, they're so offended that it's just insane. I mean, you know, it's if you tell a kid to work, to get his tail to work, he accuses you of talking to him like he's a little kid. Well, if you're not working, you're acting like a little kid. Excuse the heck out of me.
Yeah, and a lot of parents will say, "Well, don't talk that way to my child." Well, don't send him here to work for me then. And if you had talked to him the way he's supposed to be talked to him, I wouldn't have to talk to him this way now. But guess what? It's like a person I know, their child has gone to work, really a job for the first time, Greg. And they called up and they said, "Oh, I think I'm gonna quit. I go to work all day long, and I get home. I don't have any time to do anything for myself except go to sleep, eat dinner, and get up and go to work the next day. I think I'm gonna quit." And I'm laughing, and this person says, "Why are you laughing?" I said, "Well, this person doesn't even understand that that's the world. You work all day, and then you go to sleep and you get up and you go to work again. That's why you got to find your great basic purpose in your work, because that's what the world is. You work all day, you sleep, you get up, you go back to work again 5 days a week. That's just the way it is." And Greg is frozen on us, but at least he's frozen with a nice and pleasant smile. So hopefully Greg will pop back in here in a minute. But yeah, somebody here, Dragon's Rise, it gets me off on one of my favorite rants. Dragon's Rise says a lot of the gamers never stop. And it's funny because Greg talked about Jay Campbell earlier. And Greg, Jay used to talk about, and he works a lot with young guys, trying to get them to stop being dummies. And there's actually these gamers, Greg, and Jay says that video games ruined boys and Snapchat ruined girls. And Greg, there's actually gamers that will wear adult diapers so they don't even have to get up to go relieve themselves. They'll just soil themselves and sit there and play their games.
That's sick.
That really is sick, but it's reality. I've got, grandkids that are super young and they can fly through those. And I'm not nothing against Cynthia. Her grandkids come over here. They haven't seen, Nana in a while, and they're all sitting there on the tablets. Well, ain't nobody outside. We got a lake, and we got paddle boards, and we got inner tubes, and there's a big old dock and dogs and all this stuff. But everybody's inside doing their video.
Well, I got to tell you, they need to get used to the real world, and it's okay to play some video games. It's okay to do a little bit, but they are just all into it. It's all they do. They need it taken away from them. They need time out. They need real world time. They need to be told, get your outdoors and run around. I mean, these kids just aren't even used to being in the outdoors. And that's the case of some of the kids that come to work to me. They just stand around like they don't know what to do. And I had a kid working for me yesterday, and he was, we were working, it gets dark early now, and he was spooked. I'd probably be a cat walk by or something. He goes, "There's eyes out there. There's something moving." Might be Bigfoot.
It might be Bigfoot. But one thing that my new friend named Glenn Streeter, really good guy. He's I forget the name of his website right now. I wish I could remember it. But he sent me this name of this guy, and I started reading this book, and I saw something that I'd never have seen before, and it's talking about the knocking down of the exceptional, trying to make everybody the same, the domesticating of the human herd. And Greg, next time you get a hold of a Bible, read the Sermon on the Mount, the Beatitudes, and think about it in those terms. Blessed are the meek. Blessed are they that, it's blessed is the one that doesn't have any initiative, doesn't try to do anything, goes along with what they're said to do. And one of these days, in the sweet by and by, after you die, it'll be okay. But right now, just do what you're told, when you're told, where you're told, and stay a part of the fear and guilt, blood magic control matrix.
So why would I want to inherit the earth? I want to conquer space.
Absolutely. If we never think about if all we want to do is inherit the earth, we'll never even consider conquering space.
Bingo, exactly. So yeah, that's kind of, but the whole society today feminizes men in its culture and chemically too.
It is chemically, and some of it we can't get away from. I mean, I know, you talked about going to Burger King, and I'm guilty. I go to Burger King every now and then and get the Impossible Whopper. I know I probably shouldn't. It's good. Have you ever tasted it?
No, I don't want to taste it.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. Why do you think I shouldn't be eating the Impossible Whopper, Greg?
What's in it, Jeff? It's got all kind of chemicals and stuff that's meant to simulate meat. It can't be good, Jeff. I would not have it. No way. Give me the real thing.
You're right. I haven't eaten meat in about 4 months, and I've asked the same question of Cynthia's daughter's a vegan. I'm like, I know you eat this other stuff, but what's in that stuff that's not meat? It's probably worse for you than meat.
Yes. And look, if you don't want to eat meat, don't eat meat, but don't eat false meat. That's just got to be gross or something. Think about
that Impossible Whopper is pretty good though, Greg. I got to tell you.
Well, excuse me, Jeffrey. you can spank me for that later. Listen,
I'll thank you for that. You called me Rex, the man, the myth, the legend, the way of life.
Cool. Well, you are Jeffrey, so well, we have fun. The key thing though is that we get so much junk in the food they give us. We get so much junk in our environment. I mean, our receipts. I ship worms. I get these receipts from shipping worms. I got to go through these. You see, I do a lot of shipping.
Is that from the post office?
Yeah.
Yep. I get that same thing for rods.
This thing is full of biphysenol. Hey, it makes a lady out of me.
Oh my. Oh my. Yeah, I know what you mean. But do you think that the chemtrails, the stuff they're spraying on us from the planes is bad for us?
Well, if they're spraying something that can't be good for us, Jeffrey.
Good point. I agree.
How can it be good for you? Anything that's not natural in the environment really probably is not good for you.
Absolutely.
The medicines we take. Do you realize there are actually herbs that probably work better than just about any medicine on the shelf? Maybe just a few exceptions. Mm-hmm. And they break down in the environment, and they don't cause all these after effect problems. You don't get frogs with 3 legs, or all the frogs trying to be girls, or see, this stuff that we're taking, all this gender bending chemicals in our environment that we ingest goes out into the environment and affects the other species. And by the way, what you will note is in Western society, fertility rates have dropped down to 50%. It's male sperm.
They're below replacement levels, Greg.
Right. We're talking fertility, not the desire to have kids. We're talking about the ability. And if you go to third world countries where they don't have all this junk we're ingesting, they don't have that problem.
And they don't have video games and stuff like that either.
Yes.
I mean, when we were kids, Low fertility wasn't a problem, and low desire wasn't a problem. The opposite was a problem. And now you literally have young men, and like again, Jay works with young men all the time. He's a real estate broker, and he's got salespeople, and he mentors people in a men's group. And literally, Greg, there's men out there, young men, 20s, can't get erections. Young men out there in their 20s, they look like doughboys, soy boys. Young men out there can't talk to a girl, won't even talk to a girl, and they sit home and all they do is play their video games. They got really strong thumbs, but man, I tell you what, and before I met Cynthia, I could see it, because when you get girls that, I'm 54, 55 years old at that time, and you got girls that are 20, 25, 30, just can't get enough of old guys because we're actually men. So I mean, I understand that, and I was all for it then, but it's a bad thing overall.
Well, what's funny, Jeffrey, is that I've got young girls coming after me. A lot of young.
Because you're a man's man.
Bingo.
You're an alpha male. They know that if the SHTF, they know that it'll still be warm and cozy wherever Greg is.
I don't chase girls; they chase me.
Right there, brother. Right there. Boom. Give me a little bit of it. Boom. That's what I'm talking about. And just in case anyone was wondering, Kujam says he still gets morning Woody. So good for you, Kujam. Glad to hear it.
But I love ladies. I love ladies. I have, I'm not dissing any woman out here.
But you're supposed to love ladies, Greg. Men are supposed to love women. Women are supposed to love men. And sometimes women love women and men love men. That's not for this show, but you're supposed to, having desire is natural. That's another thing about Christianity. Oh, it's so bad. If you lust after a woman, you got sin in your heart. That's so stupid. We're made. A man is supposed to lust after a woman. A woman's supposed to lust after a man. It's okay to say, ooh, she's hot. It's okay, ladies, to say, ooh, he's hot.
Yeah,
that's what we're supposed to do.
So, the whole thing in religion and a lot of our society is a perversion of human nature.
Oh, bam, you just hit it.
It's a perversion. And anytime you pervert human nature with societies, with all the isms, be they religion or governmental isms, you are messing up. It's not going to end well. It's going to have problems. Let people be people. I mean, here, the funny thing is this. So God puts us in this world for a few short years, for a few decades, if you're lucky. You're programmed with intense desires, at least we used to be.
Yep.
You got these intense desires, and they're coursing through you. They're loud in your system, and yet you're supposed to listen to some spiritual guidance that you can not hardly even see or hear. It's just something in a book, something you hear a preacher say, and if you don't follow that, if you follow your desires instead, what you're programmed with by the God, the creator that made you, if you follow the creator's programming into you instead of these little whispery voices, you will burn for all eternity in hell. Yet God is love.
Yeah, don't forget though, God's love. But when we follow, I mean, we're made to have natures and desires and hungers and thirsts, and we're a cuckold society. Is that the right word? Cuckolded society. It's a sad and it's a horrible thing. But you know why, Greg? Because people that run fear and guilt control matrices prefer unarmed, uninterested peasants.
That's how they control you. That is how they got the carrot and the stick, and they want you to have the desires, but they want them to be bad because they can use them against you and use them to blackmail you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's how the evil dark side of this world operates. They get people into things like the all that messy pedophilia and crap. They get them into that, and then they turn around. You can't even join those groups unless you engage in those nasty things, and yet they turn around and blackmail their members. They use that lord over them so they won't divulge all the little secrets of the inner circles. That's how they operate.
It's so sad. It's so sad. So, we've spent like 35 minutes identifying the problems. What can we do on the ideas of solutions?
we have to start working within our own families, within our own communities, with the people that work with us. If you have people working for you, and you've got to introduce them, just like the plants you're trying to harden off. You've really got to kind of introduce them to it slowly. Although I do think boot camp would be great.
But if I was made president tomorrow or king of the United States, every single male at 18 would have to go spend 18 months in the armed services. Period.
Bingo.
You're going through boot camp. You're going to tech school, and you're going to be 18 months of somebody in your face, 18 hours a day, and you will come out a different person.
A better person.
A better person.
You were in the Air Force, right?
I was in the Air Force for 7 years.
I was in the Army. My granddad was in World War II. My granddad was in World War I. My dad was in World War II. I was in during the Cold War. I had a brother in during the Vietnam War. I had my son went over to Kuwait. So, we've had a multi-generational enlistment, I guess. So
Yep.
We've been used to that.
Yeah, and I was in during the Reagan years. It was a good time to be in the Air Force. And I learned, I grew up not easy, but I learned it's something. I mean, when you go through boot camp, it really is a personality changer. And I got sent over to Germany, Greg, and that's another thing. Get people to travel outside the United States of America and see how things work in other parts of the world and realize that our way of doing it is not the only way of doing it. And there's people that aren't us that got some really good ideas. And we got some pretty good stuff and a pretty good situation here. And I'm sick and tired of listening to people complain about how bad it is when, man, we got it so good.
Yeah, they don't even know. They have no clue. And, the isms, be it socialism, communism, they always rise to power on the backs of the disaffected in the society. But once they attain power, they turn around and kill the people that put them in power. These people think that, we get these guys in power, we're going to be able to sit on our couches and munch bonbons and popcorn and play video games. Nope. Don't work that way.
So, I think you said something, and I don't know if you said it intentionally, but you said we got to start working in our own families, in our own, family units at home. And I think that is a part of it. We've got to start to work. I mean, if you are a parent right now, and let's say you've got a teenage boy, and it probably should be girls too, but let's say for sure you got a teenage boy. If you got a teenage boy, fire your lawn service and buy a lawn mower and let your teenage boy mow the damn lawn.
There you go.
And let your girls, I mean, you got girls. If you're a parent and you've got girls that are, 8, 9, 10 teenagers, then mom, you shouldn't be doing no damn laundry. You shouldn't be doing any cleaning. And you probably shouldn't be doing all the cooking. Make those damn kids learn to do something.
That's right. Make kids learn to do something. That's the main thing. Make them do it. My lawn service was, my dad had a tractor, a hay baler, and a mower and a rake. And when I was real little, I would run around and haul hay. I was pretty strong as a young lad. And then
I've tossed hay bales. I lived in Oregon, tossed me some hay bales for a job.
And then as soon as I got, I don't know, I guess 16, maybe it was the year before, he turned it over to me and said, you go out and cut and rake and bale the hay. So I was all over the countryside with a tractor, running up and down the roads and running out to all these farms, cutting and raking and baling hay. Never damaged any of that equipment. I got a tractor here that I used to pull logs behind my house on my little 1.9 acres, and hired a kid, and the first thing you did was tear my tractor all to pieces. It's like, wow.
Somebody says in the chat room, what if they won't do it? Well, then they won't eat.
Bingo.
No supper.
Yeah, you can withhold things.
Give me your phone. It's like the first time my son asked me, Dad, can I borrow the car? I said, I'm not going to trust you to operate the car until you learn to operate the vacuum on a consistent basis. That's literally what I told him. And me, when I was young, it wasn't like your house. We just lived in a regular subdivision. I grew up on the beach in Florida, but my dad had a pull start. It was self-propelled, but I was a propelling lawnmower, and I propelled the lawnmower. And my dad didn't have no damn weed eater. He could have had a weed eater, but I had one of those hand clippers, and I would have to mow the whole yard and then go around the house and clip the hand clippers. And then I had an edger, but it wasn't no electric edger. It's just the ones you push. So I had to actually do some damn work. And if I didn't do the work, if I remember times that my dad would come home and, the maybe I'd done the mowing, but I didn't do the eating, the weed eating, the weed eating or the edging. And I go to get my car to go somewhere. I say, "Where are you going?" "Oh, I'm going out with my friends." He goes, "No, you're not. You haven't finished the yard yet." And that's the way it was.
Bingo, exactly. You got to ground the kids. You got to be able to restrict them and give them rewards when they do the good things, but hold back, cut things out.
Absolutely.
A phone is not an entitlement.
Absolutely
That's what a lot of
not.
kids think. And I heard this story about some kid that killed his parents because they grounded him from his phone. He must have had it way too much to start with.
He must have. And I remember asking my dad, "Hey, Dad, how do you spell hyperbole or whatever?" You know what his answer was, no matter what I asked him, Greg? Look it up. As a result, I've got a tremendous vocabulary.
There you go. Of course, I used to say, "Gee, if I can't spell it, how am I going to look it up?" Oh, I did have a little bit.
Well, I mean, you know how it started. I never thought of that one. But I cut the lawn, and I had, and what else did I have to do? I had to keep the things weeded. I had a cat, had to, take care of the cat. But when it was time for me to go out and do sports, I played baseball, I played football. My dad always made sure I was there, and he was never missed a game. So one hand washed the other, but it was tough.
Kids.
But it was tough love.
Well, parents these days don't give the tough love, but they don't give the support. I mean, they just throw their kids to the wolves and expect the school systems to raise them or something. And, and really and truly, if you're a parent, you really ought to try your best to work with the other parent. Stay married if you can, but if you can't, still work with them, and don't use the kids as tools against.
Can't do that.
I've been fortunate. I've been fortunate, even though I've had kids and I'm divorced. At least my ex never played those kind of games. At least I had good exes that wouldn't do crazy, silly stuff like that. Try to play the kids against you for some advantage. That's the worst thing a parent could do to a kid, is use that kid as leverage against the other parent. That is cruel to the kid, and it's also bad for them.
Absolutely. And I remember one time my daughter comes down the stairs, and I don't know, she was 14 or 15 at this point, and she had on a skirt that there's just no way I was going to let her go out the house with it. But instead of battling with her, I just took a $50 bill out of my wallet, and I threw it on the floor, and I said, "If you can pick that up, you can have it." And she realized she could not pick it up, but she still wouldn't change. And she said, "I'm not going to change." I said, "Well, you're not going to eat." And Greg, she stayed in her room. I got to give it to her. She stayed in that room for 2 days. Finally, she got hungry and she came out.
Here's for Rex. He's in the chat room.
Oh, Rex is in the chat room. Absolutely. Good to see you, Rex. Mine's too far away to grab, but wow, I saw that. And people right now would say child abuse. And I remember my son one time, he got a spanking for doing something wrong. And he come out of his house, out of his room sniffling, and he goes to pick up the phone. I said, "What are you doing?" He goes, "My teacher said that I could call Child Protective Service if you spanked me." I said, "Okay, but make sure you call the ambulance first, because you'll need them before Child Protective Services gets here." And he thought about it in a minute, and he hung up the phone, went back into his room.
Well, we're going to have to push back against the legislators and all these regulators, child protective services. We've got to unite and start pushing against them. Those of us that have the means, the CPS isn't going to run over us, but they run over the poor people. If you're poor, they will just take advantage of you to no end and take your kids from you. You may be a good parent, but they'll take those kids and put them in a terrible situation, in a household where they're not loved, where they're abused. And it's a horrible thing what happens to these kids. So the Child Protective Services is a racket.
Absolutely. I didn't want to be left out,
Yeah, well, they make a lot of money. They give the foster parents might get $600 a month per kid, but the system costs like 10 times that. I mean, you got a lot of bureaucrats and administrators that make a lot of money off this system. So they're incentivized to do terrible things, to take these kids. And our whole society is upside down, and the government's a big part of that.
Absolutely. And we two older guys have ranted a little bit here, but in reality, if you've got kids at home and all they do is sit on the TV, all they do is sit on their electronics, you don't have to take it away from them, but just take it, say, okay, an hour a day, this hour, or you give them chores. You've got to do these chores,
It's
and
like this.
you can't be doing it while you've got this phone.
How much sugar would you give these kids?
Ooh.
Just let them eat sugar all day. A kid would if you let them.
Oh, absolutely.
That's what we're doing. That's what these things are to a kid. You're just giving them continuous IV dose of sugar.
Yep.
It goes to the
Look
head.
at that, Greg. I got Rex's signature right here on this hat. How about that?
Oh my gosh, Rex, you didn't sign my hat. Oh my gosh.
And here's another thing, make him go outside too. If it's summertime, you know what? And this would be child abuse today, but I remember, Greg, get up, have your breakfast, get your chores done. Okay, you go outside, and as soon as we got outside, we would hear click, and we were outside till lunch. If I had wanted to drink, I drank out of the hose. And we were outside playing all day until lunch. We come in, have our lunch, go back out, click, and then when you heard my dad whistle, it was time to come home. But send them outside every day. At least, I mean, if it's like right now, it's cold out here, they can go play in the snow for at least a half an hour. You got to go outside. Yeah, Rex says, look under the brim of your hat, and it's signed. No?
Okay, I got something DP.
But anyway, send them outside every day. At least make your kid go outside every day. Make your kid go outside every day. Make them do chores every day. Reward them, give them an allowance, but they've got to do something. We can't have kids sitting around on their devices all day long and not doing any exercise.
So.
Uh-oh.
Oh, somebody thought my hair wasn't real.
It's real.
I've seen that in a chat, not this chat room, but in one of the chat rooms. Somebody said, Greg's hair is not real. That looks like a wig.
So, I mean, and those are literal things that you can do. And what else can we do, Greg? How about if you make your kid actually read a book a month?
Yeah.
Read a book every month.
God, make them play outside. Give them jobs. Give them chores. I mean, you've got things to do in a household. Why aren't you giving kids chores? I gave my kids chores. We had to have, when my kids were growing up, they had to have the house cleaned after supper. And a lot of times they ate late because I had a day job that ran a long time. I'm working aerospace and I was involved in societies and different things. So, but they still had to get the kitchen cleaned up. Everything had to be done before they went to bed. We had other chores they were assigned, and they knew they had to do those chores. There was no question about it. And they knew if they didn't, there was consequences. But if they did, things went well.
Yeah. And you know what? Literally, Greg, there are kids out here right now. If you sent them out there to mow the lawn, they literally could not find out how to put the gas in the mower and how to start the mower and get it running. They couldn't do it.
Yeah. But moreover, these kids today don't have the spatial skills. They don't know how to use their hands. I mean, they might know how to do this. Maybe they know the ball and sports and from that standpoint, but to be able to know how to fit things together when they're building things, like how to place 2x4s if you're going to build a building or something like that. That's just weird to them. Say, and they can't figure it out. They get lost. And I've had kids working for them. They're outside, and you have to tell them everything to do, and they just stand there and look like a zombie in between. They just can't connect the dots.
It's so sad.
Barrel, and they're not looking lost. Like, oh, what do I do? What barrel do I get? Just go get one.
Yeah.
I got a pile of them over there.
It's pretty tough when you hand a kid a shovel and you got to tell them how to use a shovel.
Yeah,
but literally, that's true. I've seen it.
Yeah.
What do I do with this?
And but I teach them the tricks, like how to use the momentum, how to work smart.
Yeah,
that's a big part of it. But I worked even when I was a kid, working in the hayfield. We had one farmer hired a football team. Now they were motivated kids. They were working out, and we're huge, big muscled kids. and I'd work them to death. And I was a scrawny kid back in those days, and they would look at me like, and then they say, how do you do that? I just told them I knew how to work.
Yep. Yep. Now, Greg, you made a video the other day that I saw, the one where you were in the snow, telling people, talking about learning how to be tough and learning how to be uncomfortable and actually do something. Talk to us a little bit about that, because it isn't just the kids.
True. It's not. We're all in our society today pretty spoiled by the conveniences we have. And these conveniences are a luxury that we may not have for long, especially if the power grid goes down or something like that happens. Then we're going to have to learn how to survive the way our ancestors did. And our ancestors didn't have 8-to-5 jobs. They didn't work a little bit and go sit on the couch. They worked their tails off. And, you know, I do that myself. I've got more than a full-time day job. I've got a very engaged day job. And then I come home and I run a worm farm. I got a market garden. I got a greenhouse, and I do 2 YouTube channels. So I'm very busy. I slept 3 hours last night. I do what I got to do when it's got to be done, and that's the way we used to do it. I mean, you had to get a harvest in. You didn't go, oh, we put in 8 hours. No, if you didn't get that harvest in, it spoiled, it rotted. You lost what you had. When work came up and when certain things had to be done, you went all in. There was no, it's dark, it's this, it's that. You got up in the dark and you worked to the dark. And it's like basic training. You probably remember this. I don't know how it was in the Air Force, but in the Army, we go out on a 20-mile road march. We got back in. It might be midnight, but you still got to clean your rifles.
Yep.
Clean them up, and at 2 o'clock in the morning, you're crawling in the sack knowing full well at 4 a.m. the drill sergeant's going to throw open the light of the door, just throw on the lights, and he's beating these metal garbage can lids and cussing as loud as he can yell. And if your feet don't hit the floor as soon as that light comes on, you were grass, and he's a lawnmower.
You were.
You had a reaction. I don't care how tired you were, how deep sleep. I had a reflex. As soon as that light was on, my feet was on the floor.
Absolutely.
Boom. And I slept on the top bunk. I would only sleep on the top bunk, money, but.
And you can, I mean, and that turns into real life skills. And they've got so much, you know, we do a lot of this. Oh, well, we need to prep, and I think you should prep, and we need to know about this, and we need to know about that. We got to figure out this conspiracy and that conspiracy. But guess what? If you can't get out and survive on your own for a few days, if you can't go out and build yourself a basic shelter, if you don't know how to feed yourself, basically, if you are too out of shape to even go out and do some work, forget about the latest conspiracy theory. Get yourself in at least a decent shape where you can actually go out and survive out of doors and learn how to do some things. I mean, Cynthia and I are going to get ready here in the spring and go to some outdoor survival classes and, you know, learn how to find things that we can eat out there, learn how to live and survive on the land, learn how to have tactical knife defense, stuff like that.
Watch my channel for wild edibles. I cover that.
Wild edibles. How about that? Yeah.
I cover that on Green Greg's. I cover wild edibles. I cover how to grow in a garden, how to prep your garden, not just how to plant seeds. I show how to prep the garden. And if you're growing organically, that's very important. A lot of people go, why are you showing all this? It's because if you're actually going to grow your own and do it without buying crap from the store, which you won't be able to get when the grid's down, you know, if you really want to be organic, that's the way to do it. I show these steps. I show how to grow stuff indoors. I've got videos on growing microgreens. I've got aquaponics greenhouse. I got to do more videos on aquaponics in the future. But I cover a lot of different things because I want people to understand how to prepare. I also cover things that's going on in the world, things that you need to be aware of.
Yep.
Because there's a lot of threats out there, and you need to. And I tell people they got to keep their eyes wide open and their head on the swivel to know what's coming at them. But you know, some people think I'm being negative. I'm also positive. I've got a channel called Galactic Gregs where I talk about a grand possible future of space development and colonization. We could have an unbelievably positive future if we don't mess ourselves up now. We're in a crux of time where the future could either be a horrible nightmare or it could be the grandest thing you could imagine.
I agree 100%.
It's up to us to pick and choose that future, but it's not going to just fall in our lap. We got to work for it. We may have to fight for it. And I think that's the case. We're probably going to have to fight to have the future that we want, just as our ancestors always did. Every generation had to struggle to advance the cause to the next level. I mean, the generation of World War II wasn't called the greatest generation for nothing. They scrapped. When they were growing up, they worked their tuchuses off, and then they fought in World War II, and then they built an industrial revolution. Good or bad, they built prosperity. Now, I'm not going to sit here and argue about what, I've got a very different vision for the future and a habitat that you can live in and make a living out of. It's got almost zero carbon footprint, but that's not why I designed it that way. I designed it because it has so many other advantages to it. I'm not worried about carbon personally, but
right.
It just happens to work out that way. It's like an Earthship on steroids. I've talked it a little bit in the video with Rex, and I'm going to talk it some more in the future. I put it also on my channel, but it was an interview with Rex.
I think it's a great idea.
I've got this grand concept, and I'm going to work it up. Also spent part of Saturday meeting with a bunch of young people at the local university here who are trying to look at the food future for our area, for Huntsville and North Alabama, to 2050. And they invited me to come and talk to them, and we had a good discourse. And I did find that some, especially some of your professionals are very motivated. My daughter's motivated. And there are people, when I say the young people won't work, I'm not saying there aren't exceptions, but the rule is not good. And the rules, what the exceptions are going to have to deal with in the future if we don't wake people up and turn them around. We can't have a world, and some people think automation is going to do everything, that AI is going to take all the jobs. It will take a lot of them, but what it's not going to take, you show me a robot that's going to go in and know how to rip a pipe out or a wire out and replace it. No, it ain't going to happen. There's, they're never going to be that intelligent. I don't care what anyone says. I
agree.
I've done computer engineering. I've done software engineering. I understand how a computer is designed at its core. The core of it's an arithmetic logic unit. Arithmetic logic unit just does one thing. It adds zeros and ones. And those zeros and ones aren't even actually zeros and ones. It's just voltage and absence of voltage, a high voltage and a low voltage. And it adds them. Subtraction is just adding a negative, and multiplication is adding them so many extra times. And so it all builds on that. And everything we see in the digital world, it looks so sophisticated, but at its core, that's all it is. So how in the world is that going to be sentient in reality? We have great sophisticated algorithms that makes it look sentient. It may sound sentient. It may act sentient, but there's no soul in the machine.
Absolutely not. And
soul is in us.
And you look at guys like Greg, and it's sad, but I haven't had the chance to meet a lot of the people that I interview. I have met Greg. I met Greg out at what I call RexCon. Everybody else calls LeakCon. And I've met Rex. I spent time with Rex, and I know that if things hit the fan and we had to be out in the wild and survive, Rex and Greg are two pretty doggone good guys to be there with. We'd be all right. We'd be all right.
So show me a robot that's going to walk down a tunnel and and light's going to come out from the voice, not a headlight.
That was amazing stuff. If you had been able to see that in real time, would you have spent some more time in there investigating whether that was some type of a portal, or the frequencies and things were just exactly right there?
Well, maybe we shall go back sometime and reinvestigate it. Rex, what do you think? He's in the chat room.
I think that's a great idea. I think that's a great idea. A lot of people will think, oh, this is just a negative show. These two old guys just hollering and yelling. Well, you know what? There is some wisdom to having been there and done that. Even if you didn't happen to do it particularly well, you at least saw other people that were doing it. And if we talk about what we know, and we talk about things that we've experienced, and we don't do it to try to say, hey, look at us, we're so smart, we're so wonderful, but we do it to help and encourage you and to rise above the state that they're trying to get you in. And Greg, before we go, and I've been wanting to go to this place, I wish I had known that you were out there. Rex said, tell them about Devil's Gate.
Oh yeah, Devil's Gate was really interesting. Rex, I told Rex that there was this place, Devil's Gate Dam, near the vicinity of where Jack Parsons was supposed to conjured up some spirits.
With Hubbard.
Right. Rex can tell us more about that, I'm sure. But I was telling Rex, "Hey, Rex, it's right here where we're going. We should go see it." And so Rex went and picked me up in the airport, and we just went straight there from the airport, from LAX.
I'm going
And,
there.
and here I'm running around with still little clothes I wore on the airplane, carrying my backpack, and we're climbing all over the place and running through this place. It was awesome. It was a really odd looking place, and to be able to stand on the edge of this dam and look down at the depths of the forest floor below us on one side and the lake on the other side, and it kind of the weird greenish glow it had. And it was an odd, weird place. It was essentially had all the look of being abandoned, like a ghost town kind of place. Though it was still functioning, still a lake there, but it wasn't in full use because the water level was down so far.
Right.
But it really did feel strange. It felt odd, special. And we're out there running through it, cutting up and having a really good time. And I'm cutting and doing a video on it. And I kind of messed my first live chat I ever done, and I messed it up some. And then we got outside and we saw these signs that said no trespassing. Here's the evidence. Delete it.
Better to ask
Sorry, guys.
forgiveness than permission. You didn't see the creature that crawls around on those rocks, did you?
Nah, probably scared him off.
Probably did. If that creature had any sense, he would have got away from you two guys, because you two are both men. You two are both myths. You two are both legends. And it's an honor to be able to hang out with Greg Allison and Rex Bear. Greg, tell us again the location of your two channels and whatever you want with that finger right there.
Yeah, I want to say something, but first I will start with my channels. My channels are Green, Green, Greg's, Greg, 1G, S, no apostrophe. Green and Greg's is separated by a space. The other channel is Galactic Greg's. Again, Galactic space Gregs, no apostrophe. There is another Galactic Greg's, a comic book channel, who has an apostrophe S. Well, I'm not a comic book channel, and I am positive. And you see that positivity come through Galactic Greg's. I do have the hopes for a very bright future, but I know we have challenges. There's always challenges in life, and we just have to overcome them. We've kind of let our society slough down, and it's easy to imagine that with all the conveniences we have and all the distractions we have in modern life. That's a part of it, that we've let these things overcome us, and our society, the fabric of our society is unraveled, and the kids are the ones that have suffered. It's not, so I've been hitting on the kids and saying they can't do this and they can't do that, but it started with the parents. And that's
absolutely.
I did two videos. I did one. I started out with our nation's disintegration because I was trying to paint the nature of the problem. But when I did the video on tough love, I was really spanking the parents. I was telling them they needed to do tough love, but I was really spanking them. Now I know there's exceptions, and I would expect the following of a channel like this to be real high among the exceptions of people that are doing it right and getting it and having good kids and raising them well. And sometimes people are just, I dated a girl who grew up in foster homes, and she had kids, and she really had bad parents, and she had no example to follow. And so she tried to figure it out on her own. She did the best she could, but she made the mistake of trying to be friends with her kids, and she really paid for it later. Those kids really took advantage of her, and that's what quite often happened. But the key thing to know is there is hope. We can turn this around, and tough love is not bad. It's love. It is love. And you do love your kids. And discipline don't mean you're a mean person that you just go beat on them and wail at them and things like that. No, you set up a framework of thresholds that kids know where the rules are, what's good, what's bad. If you transgress over on the bad side, they know what's coming to them. There's lines of demarcation. They know what those thresholds are, and they know what to punish. When I punished, it was a very metered punishment based on crossing a certain threshold. It wasn't
Absolutely.
some emotional knee-jerk reaction. That's wrong to do that. At least that's how I feel. And the response wasn't just, I got thrashed really good with hickory switches when I was a kid, but I didn't do that. I gave measured, quantitative punishment when I had to. And it would be according to the degree of what happened. And if it was repeated, if you were serial offender of a certain area, then the punishment would get dialed up a few degrees. But it was never anything that was inhuman, never anything that would leave a mark, never anything that was in any way would hurt someone, harm them. It might sting, but it would not harm them. And I know some people think that's terrible, but I'm going to tell you, when I was a kid in school, I did notice other kids that grew up where they had punishment and the ones that didn't, and you could tell the difference. And I've seen it ever since being a kid. You can tell the kids that had the discipline, the ones that didn't. And there's a big daylight world difference in them. But one of the things that struck me the most when I was in school is when it very first started happening, that there was some kid who had beat another kid up, and he was going to get paddled by a principal or something. And his parents came to the school. No, you don't mess with our kid. We'll sue you. Blah, blah, blah. My Johnny's a perfect little kid. He wouldn't harm anything. The next day, after this happened, the kid walks into a crowd of us and he goes, "Ha, they can't spank me. My parents come to school and they won't touch me." And then he just hauled off and slugged the devil out of some other kid next to him. I thought, those parents need to be tied to a whipping post and whipped with a horsewhip. Those parents. I wasn't mad at him. I was mad at the parents. I was a kid, and I was mad at his parents. I thought they need to be tied to a post and lashed.
Yep. And it might be time for a blanket party for that kid too.
Yeah, we had some of those in basic training.
We had some. That's where I learned the term in basic training.
Right. A good old blanket party.
And blanket parties are very, very effective.
Oh yeah. Get somebody dialed in real fast.
Yeah, they would correct behaviors. Well, Greg,
right.
It's been a pleasure having you. I appreciate the encouragement. I appreciate the good words of wisdom. And everything is given in love. Everything is given with the expectation of it being a better world. And I know a lot of people say things are bad and getting better, but we believe that things can get gooder. And it's all, if it is to be, I don't know if Zig Ziglar said this, somebody like him, if it is to be, it's up to you and me. So I have confidence, Greg, in these 40,000 people that are here that are my subscribers. I have confidence in Rex subscribers, and go to leakproject.com and make sure you subscribe, and go to Green Greg's and go to Galactic Greg's. And I think with the folks we got here, we can make it, Greg. I feel very optimistic, and I feel very hopeful for our future.
I believe we're going to win.
Absolutely. That's what we're here for. We're in the world changing business, Greg. And right now, that business is booming. Salute to you, my friends. Salute to all of you in the chat room. Thanks to Rex Bear, man, myth, and legend, for stopping in. We'll see you again soon, Rex. Let's do a show. Greg, it's been too long. We'll do it again real soon, my friend.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody in the chat room.
Take care, everybody. Adios and good night.
Good night.